And also, if you're still eating orange sweet potatoes, they're garbage. Hello, my honeys. It's Emmie. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Emmie. I'm a nutritionist and the creator of the Slim on Starch program. If you want to learn more about the Slim on Starch program, or if you want to get a free one-day meal plan, then go to healthyemmie.org. Scroll down to the bottom. There'll be a place for you to get your free one-day meal plan. Also, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell because I upload a new video at least every Wednesday and Saturday. And if things keep going the way they're going, I'm going to be uploading 3 times a week. You heard it here first, honey. Was my cat literally giving himself a bath that entire intro? All right, let's get into this full day of eating. Here's everything that I ate today. Let's start out with the best meal of the day, which is breakfast. I have the same thing for my first meal of the day every day. And I kind of want to back up a bit because you'll hear me say breakfast, but what I talk about with clients sometimes is not using words like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They can be sort of triggering toward only eating based on external cues. And the work that we do and the work that I do with my clients and what we talk about in the Slim on Starch program is not relying on external cues such as breakfast, lunch, dinner. It's 8 a.m., it's 12 p.m., it's 6 p.m. You can only eat at those times. No. We don't want to do that. Instead, we want to rely on internal cues. So instead of labeling this as breakfast, what I usually tell clients to do is to label this as feed number 1. This is just your first feed of the day, and you can have as many feeds during the day as you would like to. So people will look at this and they'll say, how much is that? Is that enough to fill you up? Well, I always have food around. I work from home, and so if I need more food, I can go downstairs to the kitchen and I can get more food. I did a half a cup of quick oats. You can do however much you want. This is just as much as I had today. So I did a half a cup of quick oats with a cup and 1/4 cup of water. If you want to use non-dairy milk, you can use that. I just used water. And then I added in a half a banana, teaspoon and a half of ground flaxseed, and 1/4 of a teaspoon of cinnamon. You can double this recipe because this recipe, it is a smaller amount. I have the luxury of having a kitchen downstairs that I can always go back to and get more. But if you don't have that luxury, if you have to go to your work shift and you have this much time that you have to work and it has to last you that long, then you could double this recipe. So this is what I had for the first feed of the day. Second feed of the day is the best food in the world, which is potatoes. I like things to be so simple. I don't need crazy recipes. And if you join the Slim on Starch program, you'll get tons and tons of recipes that you can choose from. And they're really good recipes. But to be honest with you, I just can't be bothered with that kind of stuff. I love that I can take my potatoes, I put them into my steamer, I poke the holes in the potatoes so that they don't explode. I set it and I forget it. And that's all the cooking that I have to do. I'm not trying to be in the kitchen all day long. I have a cat that I need to take care of. But I know that you watching this video, you're probably busy as well. And do you really want to spend your entire life slicing and dicing and this and that? And I don't have this ingredient, I need that ingredient. It is such a mess. And I think to, somebody like Steve Jobs, one of the most successful people in the world, he wore the same thing every single day so that he didn't have to use that valuable brain space. And so this is the philosophy that I like to take with food, because what I talk about with my clients is focusing on the things outside of food that you want to spend brain space on. Your relationships, your career, your hobbies, your passion, your spirituality. Let's not think about food. There's so many other things in this world for us to think about. And by having this as a meal, yes, that is going to open up so much brain space and time so that you don't have to be thinking about what you're going to eat. You put the potatoes in the steamer and you move on. So for these potatoes, I just took a bag of small baby creamers, the gold yellow potatoes. I put them into the steamer, pierced them with a fork. They were in there for about 40 minutes. This is just an electric steamer. You can boil them, you can bake them, but the steamer is so easy. I can link it below, not sponsored. And then I just took lettuce, and I took iceberg lettuce. I really like iceberg lettuce because it's nice and crunchy and watery, and it complements the potatoes very well. And all I did was wrap the lettuce in the potatoes. Now, you watching this video, you might think, That's intense. What level of a sociopath are you that you are able to eat potatoes and lettuce straight up? Well, let's not discuss that right now, but what we can discuss is that you can add on ketchup, you can sprinkle some salt on there if you need to, some mustard, some salsa, some barbecue sauce. And yes, these things do have sugar added, they do have salt added. But the philosophy of Dr. McDougall, which is one that I agree with, is that if you're not going to eat these foods at all, unless there's ketchup, unless there's salt, unless there's barbecue sauce, and you would just throw up your hands and say, well, screw this, I'm just gonna go back to eating animal products and cheese, burgers, and all that kind of stuff, then I'm gonna have you have the potatoes with some barbecue sauce, with some ketchup, with some mustard, with some salt to make it palatable. On the note of salt, I really don't care much if people use salt, to be honest. Salt is not the reason why people are overweight with all of these health issues. It's everything else that comes along with a high sodium diet. So I'm not too bothered by salt. Oh, I'm sorry, Bear. I'm sorry I hit you even though you're sitting on my desk while I'm trying to work. I'm not too bothered by salt. If my clients use salt, I usually don't care much about it. In fact, there are some scenarios where having salt actually is appropriate. If you are an athlete, if you are struggling with your thyroid, having some iodized salt can help regulate your thyroid. If you have low blood pressure, that's another reason why you would add on salt. And then the other reason why I would tell somebody to add on salt is if they won't have the food unless the salt is on there. So that was feed number 2. Moving on to feed number 3, I had an apple. This was just a pink lady apple that I cut up. I had it straight up. You could sprinkle some cinnamon on there if you wanted to. It reminds me of when I was little and I would have apple. We called it apple cinnamon sugar. It was apple with cinnamon and sugar on it. You can have any fruit that you would like to if you find that you just need a little bit of a pick-me-up. No one fruit is better than another or worse for another. You know, people say, well, I need to avoid the high sugar ones. I need to avoid these ones. No, eat whatever fruit you want. Don't overcomplicate that, please. For the love of God, have whatever fruit you want. The next thing that I had was 2 Japanese sweet potatoes, kind of like 3 Japanese sweet potatoes because one of them is a very long Japanese sweet potato. I put these in the Instant Pot. My Instant Pot is like on the fritz. So I cooked it on high pressure for 30 minutes and it still wasn't ready. And so I cooked it on high pressure again for 40 minutes and then it was ready after that. But my Instant Pot is on the fritz. It's usually good after cooking it on high pressure for 30 minutes, but it wasn't. But you can cook this however you want. You can put it in the oven. If you want to put these in the oven, you can put them in at 375 and put them directly on the rack for an hour. That makes them nice and caramelized. And you can poke it with holes to make sure it doesn't explode. I just did the Instant Pot because it's nice and easy and I don't have to worry about it. And then I took some squash. This is some honey nut squash. Honey nut squash is probably my favorite squash. You may not have seen it before. It looks like a butternut squash, but it's mini and it doesn't taste like a butternut squash because it actually tastes good and butternut squash is kind of trash. The honey nut squash, it only comes around in September, beginning of October, and it is so sweet. It tastes like butterscotch. It is so good. And so I buy a bunch in the fall and then I freeze it to keep it throughout the year. And so this is actually the last little bit that I had, which is kind of sad. But I reused parchment paper as well. So I put this on parchment paper and baked it at 400 until it was ready, which I don't know, was probably 40 minutes or so by the time it cooked through and it was nice and caramelized. Then I took my microwave steamer and I put in some broccoli and I threw that in the microwave for about 20 minutes. And I also steamed some Brussels sprouts using another microwave steamer. Yes, I have 2 for scenarios like these because I eat a lot of veggies. And I actually ended up adding some nutritional yeast to the broccoli. I'm not the biggest broccoli fan in the world, but I had it and so I made it. And nutritional yeast makes it taste really good. I had the Brussels sprouts plain and I just made a nice little bowl. So I had my Brussels sprouts and then I had the broccoli with the potato and the squash and it was delicious. I also put cinnamon on top of the sweet potatoes because you gotta have cinnamon with your sweet potatoes. If you are not having sweet potatoes with cinnamon, and also if you're still eating orange sweet potatoes, they're garbage. Then for my dessert, I My only fruit that I really have in the house right now, because this was last night, is apples and bananas. And so I had another apple, and then I had oatmeal with bananas, and I didn't have any potatoes left. I knew I needed something more. I wasn't satisfied yet. I still had some lingering hunger. And so I had another apple and another bowl of oatmeal, the same as I had at the beginning of the day. If you want a step-by-step program for exactly how to eat this way, no questions asked, it will make so much sense to you, then go to healthyemmie.org. You can get started with the free 1-day meal plan to see what it'll look like and feel like, and then you can learn exactly how you can do this for yourself and lock it in for the long term. I love you, honeys, and I'll see you in my next video.